What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be talking about 10 tips to be a better quarterback. So we're going to talk about everything that quarterbacks need to know to take their skills to the next level. Now, tip number one, you guys, is going to be having a relaxed ball carriage. So that means you don't want to be holding the ball up by your ear, up by like above on the shelf, if you will, or have the ball like loaded to your right armpit in a sense. You guys want to be nice and relaxed. Relax your traps, relax your shoulders, hold that football in the middle of your chest or slightly to the right, but you want to be relaxed so you could have range of motion. You never want to be tense, because when you're tense, that could prevent you having range of motion on your backstroke, and we're going to talk about that in a second. That's how you take the football back. But if you're super tense, sometimes you end up at this really tight arm angle. Sometimes that elbow can be lowered. So guys, relax yourselves so we could get full range of motion and generate as much power as possible from my lower half and with my hips. The more tense we are, the more energy we're exerting, and that energy needs to be exerted from our lower body, because that's how we get power as a quarterback. Now, fellas, before we get into the rest of this video, if you're a quarterback watching this and you guys would like a 2-month-long gym workout schedule and on-field drill workout schedule for QBs to follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our elite quarterback training package. What you'll get access to is its weekly workout schedules for 8 weeks, you guys. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're doing all these exercises. We give you the video examples of each exercise of the gym and each field exercise you should be doing, and we break down the exact sets and reps to follow. So it's super easy to do, you guys, and I think you guys can get a ton of value and really take your quarterback skills to the next level with this set plan in place. So again, guys, very first link in that description below. Let's get back to this video. Now, tip number two, fellas, as a quarterback, is that when you take the football back from your relaxed ball carriage position, you do not want to lift the ball directly up to a 90-degree angle. Now, the reason why you don't want to do this, you guys, is because when you lift the ball directly up to 90 and your hips and your core start to rotate through as a quarterback, we're rotational athletes as quarterbacks. We'll talk about that later on in this video. But if you lift up to 90 and you start to rotate, sometimes that ball can tilt behind your head. You have this overly high release point. The ball tilting behind your head puts a lot of pressure on your shoulder, and sometimes that can cause you to lean and make you miss high on throws. So generally, when you release the football, you guys, you want the football to be like away from your head, especially because when you're wearing pads and a helmet, this is a more realistic throwing spot than right here. But you want this ball away from your head, and you want it like maybe even with like the top of your head. Some guys have a lower arm slot, which I think is totally fine, but how we can achieve that point right there is the start of your backstroke. So if I'm throwing right now, what I want to do is when my front foot gets down and I take a step to the target, I want to be in an opposite L position. Does it need to be a perfect L? No. A lot of people spend too much time trying to get this perfect L. It could be a little tighter, maybe a little lower, maybe the nose is down. That's kind of where I'm at in this, but when your hips start to rotate through, that's what brings you up to the 90. But since you're already rotating through, that ball is away from yourself, and it's actually a faster release, and it allows you to extend and flick your wrist quicker to get you more velocity on the throw and accuracy on the throw. So guys, make sure you're getting to that opposite L angle. Do not lift that ball directly up to 90. Now, fellas, let's talk about a perfect throwing base, which is tip number 3 to be a better quarterback. So a perfect base, guys, is I would say about 70 to 75% of your weight loaded onto your back leg. You want to be in a position called the skyscraper position, which means your head, your knee, and your foot are a big column, like it's a literal skyscraper, you guys, straight up and down, and you're nice and light on your front foot. Now, why do we want to have weight on my back leg like this? And we're going to talk about how this progresses and how this builds with the rest of the throwing motion as the video goes on. But this base right here, when you have weight on your back leg and you take a step, and it's a short step, that foot stays underneath you. And when that foot stays underneath you, guess what we could do? We could rotate easier. A lot of times QBs that have this like 50-50 base, they take a stride, but sometimes that back foot gets left behind them and their hips don't rotate through as effectively. So you want to be in that stacked skyscraper position so you could get more, you could take that 70-75 and transfer it to your front leg, and also it allows your hips to rotate through much easier. So that's the perfect throwing base that we always want to try to get to. Now, tip number 4, you guys, is going to be taking a short stride with your front foot. So if I'm in that perfect base, a lot of times what quarterbacks like to do is with their back foot, like this inside arch, what they want to do is they want to push off of it, especially when they have a narrow base. And when they push off of that front foot, that causes a really long stride. You got to think that your front stride is separate from the back leg drive. You don't want to go from foot to foot when you throw, when you're trying to transfer your weight. You want to go from quad to quad, but the step is a separate event. So if I'm in my throwing base, I don't want to step to the target. I want to step towards the target. I want to maintain my base, pretend you're standing in a big hula hoop, and you're just here, short step. And the step happens, but none of my weight transfers through, because after the step, okay, now I got a base and I can go quad to quad to get my hips to actually fire. But if I start doing this push and I take this long stride, a long stride makes your release slower, and when you have this long stride and your feet are really wide, you can't engage your hips in the throw, and that could add to extra pressure on your arm and some inconsistencies in accuracy, because if you're really wide, you gotta lean, you gotta pull your shoulder, and that screws up my throw. So that short stride helps with release speed, gets more of your hips in the throw for velocity, and takes pressure off that shoulder and off that elbow. Now, fellas, we just got done talking about why you want to take a short stride, and we mentioned how you don't want to push from your front foot to your back foot when you throw, or your back foot to your front foot when you throw. You want to go quad to quad, but when you stride, it is separate from the back leg drive. Why do we want that? Why do we want to keep my weight back as I take a step to the target? And that's because it'll get me to a position called upper body and lower body dissociation. So to generate power as a quarterback, remember we talked a lot about hips rotating through, your core rotating through, you transferring weight, but it's not just about doing that whenever, it's about the timing in which of your throwing sequence you decide to transfer your weight and rotate your hips. Let me explain. So if you go here and you take that short stride, right, you guys, but when you take that short stride, you just open up with your shoulders. There's no separation between upper body and lower body. QBs generate power a lot like how baseball hitters generate power, right? You're in the batter's box, you take a step to the pitcher, the bat's back here, and then the hips fire through and the bat whips behind. That's how quarterbacks want to generate power, except the only difference is instead of having the bat already back, you got to push back with your front shoulder as your front foot gets down. You will not be able to do this if you go foot to foot. Your shoulders cannot rotate back. It's like hitting a baseball like this, not gonna have any power, right? So you gotta push the shoulders back, separate the hands, keep weight back here. I tell my guys, pretend there's a flashlight on your knee, and that flashlight wants to stay pointed at the sideline when you take a stride, because that'll help your shoulders rotate back. So guess what now? My hips can rotate through before the shoulders, and that whipping effect takes pressure off my arm effectively, and it gives me more velocity on my throws. Now, let's talk a little bit about accuracy, fellas. So obviously we talked about your base, right? You want to have 70-30, right? Nice and loaded on the back leg, nice and tall in your base. You take a stride, you want to keep weight back on the stride, you want your shoulders to go back, and then now what you want to do is you want your hips to rotate through before the upper half. Now, that doesn't necessarily guarantee accuracy. Can it guarantee power on the ball? For sure. Can it guarantee taking pressure off your arm? Absolutely. But accuracy comes a lot from your front side in your throwing motion. So if I'm a right-handed quarterback, that would be my left side. So the magic spot that we want to be at is your hand should be by your face like you're eating a sandwich. That's the analogy I use. And you want your shoulders to be parallel to where you want the ball to go. Why do we want to do that? So a lot of times what guys do is when they rotate with their hips, they also take this front shoulder and pull it open over here. So if I'm throwing at the camera and my shoulders are going this way, that can cause my arm to fly outside of my frame and make the ball miss right or make the ball miss left because my arm is coming across. That would be considered an over rotation. A lot of times guys who have a really big stride, they take this big stride and because they can't rotate, they take this front elbow and pull down when its hand is not by their face like they're eating a sandwich, and the hand goes high, and that's why they release high. So if you can correct your lower body, the upper body stuff is a lot easier to emphasize, because a lot of times guys who have flawed lower body mechanics subconsciously make up for it by doing this or doing this just to get the ball there, because this will generate power, but it's wild power, right? So it's a short stride, weights back, shoulders go back, hips go through, but this stays here. So your release can stay inside of your frame, not outside your frame. Outside your frame, because that's where the accuracy is messed up. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, fellas, is quarterbacks having a pre-snap process. So I'd be lying to you if I said that the quarterback position is all about the physical traits, like arm strength, accuracy, velocity, being able to extend the play, throw on the run. That's not all it's about. Up here plays a major role. So you need to have a pre-snap process when you come to the line of scrimmage to help you make good decisions as a quarterback. So what's that pre-snap process? So I'm going to give you an example of a play that I've used a couple times to give you an idea of it. So let's say on one side of the field we have a double slant concept, and let's say on the right side of the field we have a slant bubble. So a bubble slant concept. Double slant, slant bubble, right? And so let's say we come up and we're playing a team that likes to run a lot of too high coverage. So cover 2, cover 4, etc. So cover 2 is when the safeties take the deep pass, corners play the flats. Cover 4, corners are bailing, safeties are bailing, and they're splitting the field up into 4 deep zones, right? So the slant bubble is great versus cover 4. The double slant is much better versus cover 2 than it is on the slant bubble side, because the slant bubble, the bubble goes into the corner and the slant's running right into the backers. So let's say you come up to the line pre-snap and you see that it's cover 2. You see some key things coverage-wise that tells you, okay, it's cover 2. The pre-snap process you should look for is safeties, corners, box. That's how you process info. And then it's like, okay, I know it's this coverage. I'm going to go to this side. That's who I'm reading. Bam. And it's a quick thought process, you guys. Now, if you want to learn more how to read defenses, how to recognize coverages, on our website, we have over 500 different videos, all based on that I myself have made, where I'm breaking down coverages on the screen, drawing on the clips of film, explaining what to look for to make you a better quarterback and improve your football IQ. So guys, if you go to the second link in the description of this video, second link in the description below, that's you can get access to our 500 different videos to help with your pre-snap process and football IQ as a quarterback. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, fellas, is leadership. I think there are a lot of things off the field, maybe in the locker room, in the film room, that a lot of quarterback coaches don't necessarily talk about on social media, but I wanted to talk about leadership, because being a good leader is one of the most important attributes that a quarterback can have. And there are two types of leaders in my eyes that I see. There are thermostat leaders and then thermometer leaders. So a thermostat, think about what it does. It sets the temperature of the room, right? So you want it cold, you want it 65, you set the temperature, right? A thermometer tells you what the temperature already is in the room. So if it's 75 degrees, the thermometer is going to tell you that it's 75 degrees, right? So that's the type of leaders that you see with quarterbacks, especially at the high school level and the youth level. Especially if you're an underclassman, you have a chance to play on varsity early. Do you come in there and do you set the tone with your work ethic, set the tone with the play knowledge that you have, set the tone with asking other receivers, asking other guys to come out to workouts? Or are you that dude that just kind of blends in and just kind of like, you know, tries to make friends with everybody and jokes around and doesn't really work hard, maybe skips reps because he sees older guys doing it? You can't be that type of leader, because that really isn't a leader, you guys. You need to be a thermostat leader. Set the tone with your actions, set the tone with your work ethic, and set the tone with how much you actually care about football. And I promise you, guys are going to follow you, and you'll be a much better leader in the process. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about, fellas, tip number 9 to be a great quarterback is learning from mistakes, right? So I think the quarterback position, every single rep, you either have a good rep or a bad rep. That's just the way it goes. And obviously we want to have more good reps than bad reps, but mistakes are going to happen. It's inevitable. And that's really at any position in football. But I think a lot of times quarterbacks just have the personality type where they put a lot of pressure on themselves, and, you know, they expect a lot out of themselves, which is good. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be that way, because that's how I am too. I expect a lot out of myself, and I get very, very down on myself when I make mistakes, right? But the thing you have to understand is that you either win or you learn. That's the attitude you need to have. If you make a mistake in practice, you need to understand that it's practice. Even in a game, you need to understand that, like, I need to focus on my job on the next play. But you make a mistake, guys, like, hey, go to the sideline, learn from the mistake, make sure it doesn't happen again. That's called improvement. And if you can just have that type of attitude, trust me, it's going to be a lot easier to manage the highs and the lows of this position, because this position is a very high-low position. You can throw a 50-yard touchdown pass, then on your next play, you could throw a pick six to lose the game. So it's just one of those things, like, you got to understand. Learn from mistakes so you can become a better player. Don't dwell on the mistakes, and always have next play mindset. Plays over, next play. Plays over, next play. And then you go watch film, you learn from your mistakes, make sure they don't happen again, and that's how you can really see improvement at the quarterback position. So now, fellas, tip number 10 to be a great quarterback, and I wanted to end the video with this one because I think it's important to also look the part as a QB in terms of how you're throwing the ball, how the ball comes off your hand. So we're going to talk about 3 things that will make you throw a better spiral. So tip number 1, guys, when you're holding the ball, you need to make sure that there is a gap, a small pocket of air between your palm and the football. A lot of times guys have their palm all over this football, and that can cause them to curve the ball and not get the best, like, snap on their throws. Number 2, your spiral finger, guys, is your index finger. So if you put more pressure onto the football with your index finger, that's going to help that be the last finger to touch the football, which will help you get more spin. And then last but not least, you guys, when you release the ball, make sure your palm is not coming towards you. You're turning the top of your thumb over so you can get a better flick and a better extension on your throws.